Good morning, everyone. Again, nice and lovely to see all of you. Thanks for joining today morning. And again, we'll start with a short mindful breathing meditation, watching your breath mindfully for a few moments, just to quiet our mind and bring our mind in moment, in present. Then we can try to generate good motivations, intention being for being here. May us coming here together, listening, and trying to reflect, contemplate, and try to apply as much as possible whatever we can in our everyday life. Due to all of that, may it be caused condition to transform our mind, our heart, by decreasing and minimizing and destroying those negative thoughts, feelings, emotions that are harmful to others, harmful to ourselves, harmful to both. While trying to cultivate, improve, and increase those positive and beneficial thoughts, feelings, emotions. Especially loving kindness, compassion, the Bodhicitta mind, wisdom. In short, maybe it causes a condition to actualize and improve and fully develop all the lamrim, gratitude path, spiritual realization, within our mind stream. So that we can be more help, benefit to all sentient beings, other sentient beings, as well as find more peace and happiness in ourselves. And it may be causing condition to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So not only we can help others, but we will be able to help every sentient beings without any discriminations. And not only to be able to help, but to be able to help in the best way. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soke Sonan La Chanchu Gato Dani Dagi Jin Sogi Pesonan Ki Dola Pende Sangye Juba Sangye Chodan Soke Sonan Chanchu Gato Dagi Jin Pesonan Dola Pende Sangye Juba. So in recently we have been discussing on this particular text, the Lamb of the Path to Enlightenment by great Indian master Atisha Divankara. And within that, in earlier sections, we finished about the common practice of, known as the small scope practice. And we also discussed the common practice of middle scope practice. And then we are on a section where there is the practice of great scope. And within that, basically the practice of great scope according to the sutra or personal parameter vehicle and according to the Vajrayana vehicles. And within that, we are in a section of the first sections, the sutra or personal parameter yana or vehicle. And in terms of that, and there is generating the aspiring bodhicitta mind and engaging bodhicitta mind, and then the precept of those aspiring and engaging bodhicitta mind and the vows, and so in that we just finished last week discussing on how to train our mind, how to train our mind to cultivate that aspiring bodhicitta or awakened mind. And once we have generated bodhicitta mind by training our mind, then to stabilize that bodhicitta mind so that we don't lose them, to stabilize that, and we try to, through the ceremony, we try to take the aspiring bodhicitta precept or the vows, so that, and then I think today we are in a section, once we have taken that aspiring bodhicitta vows, then then we try to keep the precepts of the vows, so that the vows and the precepts are to support and help to improve our practice, to help us to cultivate the bodhicitta mind and to maintain the bodhicitta mind once we have realized it, and to increase and improve. The precepts or the vows, are to be taken by those who cannot keep them perfectly. If you can keep those vows, precepts perfectly, you don't need to take vows. The Buddha doesn't need to take vows because they never break it. They live that life. So the whole purpose of taking those precept vows is so that because of those vows and precepts, it helps us to be more mindful in our actions, in our thoughts. And even sometimes we break it, but still we try to do more careful next time not to break it. And we put more effort. And through that kind of effort and practice, we get better and better. And so that is, sometimes we feel like, oh, I have to be perfect. I shouldn't take it unless I can keep them perfectly. Well, if you have reached that point, you don't need to take it. There's no purpose of that taking it, So the very reason, the very purpose of taking is to help us to get better, improve, and that is one method, one way of, it's like, at the very beginning, we have certain kind of behavior, and unless we have been fined, we'll break those laws, okay? Whether it's driving traffic, for example. And slowly, you get better. And then even when there is no more fine, you don't break them, But at the very beginning, having that law and fine is to help us to get to be better. And once we are good at that, then if everyone follow that, there is no need of rule. There's no need of those fine. There's no need of rules. And so that is same the vows precepts. We have to understand in that way. And so in order to, once we have taken the aspiring bodhicitta vows, in order to guard them from degenerating in this life, then we try to contemplate and meditate, practice on the bodhicitta mind, as much as we can, by contemplating on the benefit of the bodhicitta mind, the advantage of the bodhicitta mind, the positive quality of the bodhicitta mind. The more we contemplate and understand, the more benefit, more advantage, more positive quality of that, the more we'll be inspired to cultivate that bodhicitta mind. And so therefore, that is one of the kind of the precepts we try to keep. So in relation to that, I think that's where we are. Again, these verses have no number, so I think that is a little bit hard. It might be page number 4, I think, or page number 3. And I think it's verse 4 in that, where it says, Maitreya has thoroughly explained the quality of generating such aspiration of bodhicitta in the Sutra of Arhat trees. So there is a sutra, that particular Arhat tree. In that, Maitreya has explained the positive qualities or benefits or the advantage of cultivating sex aspiring Bodhisattva mind. And so in that sutra, so mm, mm. In that sutras, it has explained with many examples, with more than 200 different examples. And in that sutras, it is said, like son of the leadership daughter, the Bodhisattva mind is like the seed of all the enlightened qualities. So one example, is like a seed, like seed of all the enlightened positive quality, because all the enlightened positive qualities arises from that Bodhisattva mind. All the Buddha's qualities, enlightened qualities, arises from the Bodhisattva mind. Therefore, it is like seed. Also, it is explained. It is also like the field or the farm from where all the different plant grows within the mind. Positive virtues, positive inner qualities grows within the sentient beings. Therefore, it's like a farm, the field, the ground, So like that, in that, it has been explained with many more than 200 different examples. So just to give just 2 examples in that, Having understood. So next one is, having understood limitless qualities of mind of complete enlightenment. So the Bodhisattva mind, if we study, like that sutra, or such as if you study the chapter 1 of Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Warrior Life, where he explained the advantage of benefit of the Bodhisattva mind, or in some of the lamrims, so we try to study them and then try to understand, incredible limitless of positive qualities of benefit of such Bodhisattva mind. From reading the sutras, by reading sutras that are spoken by the Buddha, or by the commentaries of great masters, Indian, Tibetan great masters, such as Shantidevas, Nagarjunas, and other Lamsongkhapas and others, reading from those, or listening to a spiritual teacher, or listening, even we haven't read those ourselves, but at least, studying and learning from the spiritual teachers about all incredible benefit and positive qualities of those. And through that, then with that understanding, generate the very state of the mind, the awakening mind of the Bodhisattva again and again. So that is, so we try to generate the Bodhisattva mind, contemplate, meditate, and try to generate the Bodhisattva mind again and again. At the moment, it does not, the Bodhisattva mind does not arise or be cultivated spontaneously. When we try to meditate, maybe we started to feel a little bit of that. But when we don't meditate, we don't feel that way. And so that's why we need to practice, train, and meditate again and again until even when you are not meditating, that mind arises naturally, spontaneously. And to do that, we have to meditate and contemplate and practice again and again and again. And also that way, by doing that, then it also, maintain our bodhicitta mind from degenerating, whatever bodhicitta mind we might have. And I think I might have mentioned last time, when we take those inspiring bodhicitta vows, there are many different, very extensive and short, medium and short. You can use different verses and ceremony. And the most short one is we can do the refrain bodhicitta prayer, those that we do every day. And it is said that it was composed by Atisha himself. And by using that, by reciting 3 times, we can do that too, And so the next one is, training the mind to accumulate the 2 collections, the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom. The sutra requested by Viradada truly explain its merits. So in that sutra, it has explained by generating the bodhicitta mind how much merit we create, a lot of merit that you create, a lot of virtues or positive energy or merit one create by generating that bodhicitta mind. And that has been explained in that sutras. And so the author, Atisha, is saying, here I shall summarize them by citing only 3 verses. So he said, there is so much, if you're interested, one can read, but he's not going to quote every verses because it will be too much. So he's going to quote only 3 verses here, just to give some example from that sutra, so for us to understand when we generate that kind of virtues, that kind of bodhicitta mind, awakening mind, how much merit we accumulate, okay? And because, as I mentioned, one of the vows is training to accumulate the 2 collections, the collections of merit and collection of wisdom, and so that is one. So therefore, in that it gives, if the merit of the bodhicittas were to take physical form, even the whole of space itself could not contain its vastness. So that is one example that you see, of course, space is limitless. And I think New Mexico is a good place to understand the limitless of the sky, space. In some places, it does seems like there's a limit. It's a small, but when you come here, you can see it's very spacious and limitless. So it is, even though it's limitless. So even the bodhicitta, the merit or the virtues from that bodhicitta mind, the merit from bodhicitta mind has no physical form. But if it were to have physical form, then even the skies will be limited. It will be too small. The merit will be bigger than the space. So if a person were to fill with a jewel, okay, a person's in a practitioner who have strong faith and were to fill with the jewels, an offering of not ordinary offering, but extraordinary offering, such as the jewels. and to not someone, just ordinary being, but some holy objects, such as Buddha field, many Buddha fields. Not only one Buddha field, but many Buddha fields, as there are grain of sand in the river Ganges River. So, River Ganges or Ganges River is one of the biggest river in India, and you can imagine how much sand there is. You cannot count them, So, just as the grain of that. So, not only the Buddha field, but Buddha field as equal as the grain in that river Ganges. To that, and to offer them to the protector of the world, the Buddhas, so how much merit you create if someone offer to that amount or number of enlightened beings, Buddha field, as number as the grain of the sand in the river grain, or grain or the sand of the river Ganges, an offering of not just ordinary but jewels. How much merit we create. Incredible, unconceivable, But when you generate bodhicitta mind for 1 second, the merit you create even more than that. The merit you create by generating the bodhicitta mind, it is even more than all this offering you make. So it's, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche will say, is unbelievable, unbelievable, unbelievable. Unconceivable for us, as Buddha explained here. Yeah, so this would be far surpassed by the offering of someone joining hands together and bowing in their mind to enlightenment, for this is beyond any limits. So, generating that bodhicitta mind with that kind of respectfully, by understanding the value, the holiness of that bodhicitta mind, and trying to generate that, and that far surpassed that the offering that mentioned before, And you should generate inspirational bodhicitta again and again, as mentioned, and constantly increase it, trying to maintain it from decreasing or degenerating it, and to improve and increase it more and more. It through great exertion, through a lot of effort, by putting effort. First, try to generate them, and then once we generate it, try to maintain them so that it doesn't degenerate, and not only not degenerate and maintain, but to increase more and more by putting up. You should fully uphold your precepts as instructed, so the precepts, as I mentioned, meditating on bodhicitta mind again and again, and then, by contemplating it, by understanding the benefit of that, and trying to generate the bodhicitta mind 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, 6 times a day, as much as possible, and then trying to accumulate a collection of merit and wisdom, and then not to give up the bodhicitta mind when we encounter difficult people, mischievous people, unkind and cruel people. So through that, by keeping that, then we will be able to guard the bodhicitta mind from degenerating in this life. So those are the kind of the 4 precepts. So that is what: uphold your precept as instructed. so that you may recollect this in other life as well. So then, so these four are a precept to uphold the bodhicitta mind in this life, from guard them or uphold from degenerating them. And then in order to uphold and guard them from degenerating in the future lives, in other future lives, then we'll try to engage into, abandoning the four negative dharmas and trying to practice or engage into the four virtues dharma, And so again, even though it is not explained here in the actual each of them, even though it is not mentioned each of them in this verse itself, but it does explain about the precept, how to uphold and guard in the futures, and through that. And also in terms of abandoning the four negative dharma, is abandoning of deceiving the spiritual masters, that's one, and then knowingly deceiving them, and discouraging others from engaging in practice of virtues, or making them regret for something virtuous they engage. So we shouldn't discourage from someone doing something good, virtuous, and make them regret, and abusing or, the bodhisattvas out of anger, so abandoning that, and then, showing up yourself to be as selfless when there is a strong selfish motivations. So, it's kind of pretending and deceiving others, even though you have a selfish motivations, but you try to show that you don't have any selfish attitude. And so that is trying to abandon those for negative dharma, And then in terms of the virtues, then we try to not to lie, and deceive others, not to lie and deceive others. So if you don't lie and deceive others, of course you will not deceive also your spiritual master as well, and lie to them as well. And then, not to discriminate among sentient beings, and not to discriminate the sentient beings, trying to be as equanimity, trying to practice as equanimity as possible towards all sentient beings, and then abandoning and criticizing the bodhisattvas, And so since we don't know who is bodhisattva, who is not bodhisattva, then we try to practice not to criticize and others as much as possible, Even though maybe we might not be able to do it completely, but we have to try effort. We have to be mindful and for effort not to do that, just as we don't want to be criticized. I think also we try not to criticize others as much as possible. And then whenever possible, whenever we have opportunity, whenever it's possible, trying to encourage others to be more kind, more compassionate, trying to encourage others to cultivate the bodhicitta mind, to follow the bodhisattva path. In other words, trying to encourage and inspire others to be more kind, more compassionate. Okay. Not trying to force them. You cannot force them to do that, but we can inspire, we can encourage, we can inspire. And that is something, same with whether you're a friend, whether you're children, we don't want to force them to practice spiritual path that you follow, but you can encourage and you can inspire them. There is nothing wrong with encouraging and inspiring them. Pushing them, forcing them is not good. We shouldn't do that. But encouraging, inspiring them, because it is helpful to you and it could be helpful to them. Because if you find it is beneficial, if it's helping you benefit, it could also benefit and help them. And therefore, something that can be helpful, beneficial, we should try to inspire and encourage them. So so those are the 8 kind of practice that one should engage. And by engaging those practices, then it helps to maintain, guard, and uphold the Bodhicitta mind from degenerating in the futures. Okay, so then those are the practice to help against degenerate this life and in future lives. And again, I think just to touch on a little bit on the benefit of the Bodhicitta mind. Of course, we talked about what the Bodhicitta mind is previously, last week, and how to meditate, how to contemplate, to cultivate that Bodhicitta mind. As Shantideva explained in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in terms of purifying or cleansing negative karma, destroying the negative karma, and cultivating the Bodhicitta mind, one of the most powerful practice or virtues to destroy that. And he gave an example of it's like the fire at the end of the there's there are times when the whole world or universe is consumed by the fire energies, and that fire is most powerful power. And so it's in Bodhicitta mind is like that fire that consume and destroy all the negative negativities, all the negative karmas. In terms of accumulating merit, as is here mentioned, also as he also mentioned, whatever out of that Bodhicitta mind motivation, whatever virtues we engage into, small to big virtues, through body, speech, mind, whatever virtues we engage into, if that virtue is motivated by the Bodhicitta mind, by experiencing the result of that virtues, it never exhausts the virtues until you achieve enlightenment. Other virtues, when you experience the result, then that virtue is done, consumed only once. But when it's motivated Bodhicitta mind, it never finishes. It's like a drop of water in the oceans. As long as oceans is there, the part of the drop of water is always there. Even you have taken, gallons and gallons of water from that oceans, still that one part of the ocean, one drop of the ocean, the part of the one drop of the ocean is still there. As long as the ocean is there, similarly like that. So And also he explained, that with the Bodhicitta mind, we can transform all our ordinary actions into something virtuous, something into a Dharma, spiritual, by the power of the Bodhicitta mind. When you eat, if you eat with Bodhicitta mind, your act of eating becomes virtuous. If when your act of eating is motivated with the Bodhicitta mind, while you are washing a dish, is normally just an ordinary activities. But if you wash with the Bodhicitta mind, with Bodhicitta motivation and Bodhicitta mind, the act of cleaning, washing, become a practice, become a virtues. And same when you are sleeping, if you sleep with Bodhicitta mind, the act of sleeping become virtues. So every act that we might be engaging in 24 hours, whatever different act we do, actions, if we try to do with Bodhicitta mind, with Bodhicitta motivation, then all of those acts can become virtues. All of those acts can become spiritual. All of that can become cause to create merit and cause of enlightenment. So then you don't have to feel I'm wasting my life. Do you get it? You don't have to feel, oh, I'm wasting my life because I have to sleep 7 hours, 8 hours. Or I'm wasting my life because I spend so much time eating, cooking, cleaning. Or I'm wasting my life because all of those acts can become practice, virtues, cause of enlightenment. If we can do all those different activities with Bodhicitta mind, with Bodhicitta motivations. And if you do that, then definitely, then you don't have to complain that you don't have time to practice, because all of those are practice. You transform all them into the practice through the Bodhicitta mind. Cleaning itself is a practice. Cooking itself is a practice. Eating itself is a practice. Sleeping itself is a practice. And all of them virtues. And that is just in that moment, in that time, we try to bring the Bodhicitta motivation, the Bodhicitta mind. And if we do that, so and therefore, the Katamba masters used to say, if you want to purify, practice Bodhicitta mind. If you want to accumulate merit, practice Bodhicitta mind. And Bodhicitta mind is, the base for purification, base for accumulating merit. And we need to accumulate merit to achieve enlightenment. We need to accumulate merit to be more benefit to others, to be able to help others more. The more merit we have, the more we are able to benefit, help, and the quicker and with more ease we can achieve enlightenment and serve the sentient beings. And so with merit and the Bodhicitta mind, that we can create the merit so much as Buddha explained in that sutras, as we discussed earlier, some of the verses. And as Lama Tsongkhapa said, Bodhicitta mind is such, even though your intention is to help and benefit others, by product it helps and benefit yourself. So in a way, by practicing the bodhicitta mind, it helps others and yourself, both. Even though you don't have the intentions through that to help and benefit, but you get the benefit and help from that. And so, and as His Holiness always says, advice, as well as Lama Sopa Rinpoche advice all the time, if you want to benefit others, practice bodhicitta. If you want to benefit yourself, practice bodhicitta mind. If you want to have a long-term ultimate happiness, practice bodhicitta. If you want to have short-term happiness, practice bodhicitta. If you want to fulfill the purpose of well-being or other sentient being, practice bodhicitta. If you want to fulfill and accomplish your own purpose, practice the bodhicitta mind. And bodhicitta is the very heart of everything. As Buddha said, it's like a seed of all the plants. It's the earth for all the plants to grow. For all these virtues, all these spiritual realizations, all the happiness, all come from that bodhicitta mind. I don't recollect the exact the name of the sutra, but there is one, there's in one sutra where Buddha explained to all bodhisattvas, you don't have to practice so much, just practice one dharma, and that is the bodhicitta mind. And so because bodhicitta is the very, and as I mentioned before, all the different practices are to support that bodhicitta mind. Some of those practices are as a preliminary for that bodhicitta mind. But the main is the bodhicitta mind. The main body of every practice is bodhicitta. Some of those practices as a preliminary to help to cultivate that bodhicitta mind. Some of them are the advice or precepts to maintain that bodhicitta mind from degenerating and to help to improve and increase. But the very heart of everything is the bodhicitta mind. And every practice we should kind of understand and trying to practice different practice to support that bodhicitta mind, directly, indirectly. And so, and one of the reasons, as His Holiness says, that he has been able to keep his mind from being despair and kind of, even with everything that is happening in the world, especially what happened in Tibet, especially what he experienced, continued to experience, and Tibetan continue to experience. Despite everything that, that he's still very positive, still very hopeful, still very, courageous, confidence, and not being despair, not being discouraged, not losing hope, not being bitter, is because of the bodhicitta mind. That's the bodhicitta mind help him. It's the bodhicitta mind that helped him from being all of that despair, bitter, and losing hope. All of that bodhicitta mind give him all this inner strength, inner energy, and to be continue to be positive, hopeful, and not to fall in those negative state and negative emotion that knock you down, that knock you down, and he give credit for that. His mental ability to deal with that in that way is because of the Bodhicitta mind, because of Bodhicitta mind. Because when you have Bodhicitta mind, and one of the favorite prayer, His Holiness, he all the time he said he recite that all the time, every day, many times, and every ceremonies we have, he will recite that, and from the Shantideva, as long as the space remains, as long as the sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the sentient being. And that is his practice. And that will come from the Bodhicitta mind. When you have dedicated yourself that I'm going to remain in a place or environment where there is suffering, where there is sentient beings, until each and every sentient being problem is solved, until each and every sentient being is liberated, until each sentient being's suffering is elevated. With that kind of confidence, that is the Bodhicitta mind, willing to remain as long as it takes in order to help and benefit and free all sentient beings suffering. When you have that kind of attitude or courageous, nothing can knock you down. Then with that kind of mind, this problem is nothing. There's that kind of feeling, attitude. This problem is only one bit of what I'm willing to go through. These problems, this suffering is nothing. Even it means that whole your life, when you talk about Bodhicitta mind, you are talking about eons and eons. That you have that courage, the Bodhicitta mind, to want to be able to remain if it needs for eons and eons. So here the problem is not eons, it's one lifetime. So that doesn't seem anything. And when you have that Bodhicitta mind, you are thinking about, you develop, in order to liberate even the most unfortunate state and even the most worst suffering, even if I have to take on myself in order to help others, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. Then when you do that, this whatever challenges, difficulties you face, relatively they are nothing compared to what you are willing to take on. So with that, all this feel, so therefore it doesn't overwhelm you, It doesn't overwhelm you and knock you down. And that is how powerful the Bodhicitta mind is. That is how powerful Bodhicitta mind is. For us, little challenges, little suffering, little problem, we become despair and we knock it down. It knocked our mind down. We become discouraged, lose hope, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help. It only makes things worse. And so, and because we don't have that same level of courageous mind like the Bodhicitta mind, that kind of incredible courageous mind of Bodhicitta. I haven't seen any explanation, but the way one way I sometimes explain is, when you have that Bodhicitta mind, sometimes we might wonder, whether if you started to contemplate on the suffering of all sentient beings, that it will overwhelm you, If you have bodhicitta mind, it doesn't overwhelm you. When we don't have bodhicitta mind, then it can overwhelm you. When you have bodhicitta mind, when you are willing to take on all the suffering of all sentient beings with that understanding of that, and it doesn't overwhelm you. The way I see it is like, the stillness in the ocean, there's the stillness in the oceans, and there is waves, on the surface. There are big waves, small wave, many waves, big wave. The ocean feels the waves, but it doesn't disturb the stillness and the depth. Do you get it? When there is so much storms and waves, storm, the ocean feel it. It is not that the ocean doesn't feel that storm. It's not that ocean doesn't feel that waves and all of that. While it feel it, it doesn't disturb the stillness that's below. That is how the Bodhisattva, they feel the pain of sentient beings. When they see, when they hear, when they reflect, when they contemplate on the pain and suffering, they feel it, but it doesn't overwhelm them because they have that stillness, that courage, that there's that depth, courage, and stillness. So therefore, it doesn't kind of knock them, overwhelm them, and so I know that is a very different experience for those who have cultivated bodhicitta mind with that kind of courage than for us ordinary. When you don't have that, then of course, if you hear about suffering of your friends, families, your loved ones, your animals, we already started to feel overwhelmed, And then you hear two people, three people's problems, you become more and more overwhelmed, despair, because we don't have that bodhicitta mind, the courageous at the moment, But if you have that, it doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. You will feel, but it will not disturb and it will not overwhelm that your stillness, and that because of that very strong, powerful, unshakable courage, unmovable, unshakable courage that one develop with that kind of bodhicitta mind, And it's a bit different, At the moment, we try to, our attitude, our mind is to escape and run from this problem and suffering. Always trying to avoid, always trying to run away, always trying to escape from the problem and suffering. On the other hand, when someone trains bodhicitta and as a bodhisattva, they want the suffering to come. They want the problem to come. In terms of mental preparedness, in terms of mental courages, Not only I want to take on my problems, suffering, I want to take on suffering and problem of all others. Not just few beings, all human beings, all animals, all sentient beings. In terms of mental strength, that is what it is. When they train that mental strength, instead of escaping, the willingness to face, the willingness and the courage to face problem, challenges, difficulties, suffering, not only that, more and more. And because of that, that is why the bodhisattvas, once you have bodhicitta mind, that they become so strong, they develop so strong mental strength, and you can see with many beings, someone like His Holiness Dalai Lama, And Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you can see they never seem to be discouraged, knocked down, despair, even with so much challenges, difficulties, you know. For us, is not definitely, at least for me, you know. Even it's one small community as a centers or in the monasteries, when there is some problem, you know, I say I'm done with that, you know. Feel like I'm done with that, you know. Uh, I don't. But imagine like His Holiness, you know, who has, you know, so much problems, complaint coming every day. Individual organizations. Same with Lama Zopa, who is running a more than 160 different, you know, centers, monastery, nunnery, schools, health, social activities, and always problem from there, you know. Everywhere there is some problems, you know. And then on top of that, and individually, students writing their problems, you know, their individual problems. On top of the organizational challenges and difficulties of also such a big that with the different cultures, with the different peoples, and all of that. On top of that, then there is so much of individuals asking advice and come about their problems, you know. But you know, they don't seem to be overwhelmed by that, you know, and feel like I'm done with that, you know. And never kind of discouraged and continue to walk despite whatever challenges, continue, never give up, continue to work so hard. And that is, you know, the Bodhicitta mind is the one that gives them that strength. That is that what gives them that strength that we don't have at the moment, or at least I don't have. The strength I don't have, that others do not have, but they have. Where does their strength come from that Bodhicitta mind? That's where that comes from. Their strength is coming from that Bodhicitta mind. You know, so okay, so I think maybe yeah. The next one. So as I mentioned last week, you know, there's aspiring Bodhicitta mind and there's engaging Bodhicitta mind. So up to here, we finished you know, aspiring Bodhicitta mind. So, you know, the preparations, the preliminary, and then the actual training in the aspiring Bodhicitta mind. And once you have generated Bodhicitta mind, to stabilize it, you take a precept through the ceremony, and then once we have taken the precept, trying to keep those precepts so that the Bodhicitta mind do not get degenerated in this and in futures. So up to that, that is what we have just kind of discussed by following this process. And next one, start the engaging Bodhicitta mind. Okay, engaging Bodhicitta mind. And again, in terms of engaging Bodhicitta mind, you know, again, explaining why we need to have the engaging Bodhicitta mind, you know, and then once we have engaged in Bodhicitta mind, you know, then why, how to take the vows, the precepts, you know, and once we have taken the vows, then how to keep the vows and precepts. So that is where it is. without the actual vows of engaged bodhisattva. So among the different expert scholars, there seems to be a slightly different way of explaining the difference between the aspiring bodhisattva mind and the engaging bodhisattva mind. Sometimes you see slightly different, according to slightly different commentaries or different masters. Sometimes there seems to be a little bit small differences, as Shantideva explained in his Guides to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, about the difference expiring and engaging bodhisattva mind. He gives the examples. Is inspiring bodhisattva mind in the wish to go somewhere. And engaging bodhisattva mind is starting to go. You started the journey. So you have the wish to go to the grocery to do shopping. That motivate you to go. Next, then you start driving or taking whatever transportation to go there to do the shopping. So that is like, aspiring or wishing bodhisattva and engaging bodhisattva mind. So aspiring to achieve enlightenment, wishing or aspiring to achieve enlightenment, supreme enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That is the aspiring bodhisattva mind. And now, motivated by that aspiring bodhisattva mind, now you actually engage into the bodhisattva practice or bodhisattva contact, and that is going towards the enlightenment, such as through the practice of 6 perfection or 10 perfections, or the practice of through the bodhisattva practice of gathering, 4 means of gathering and benefiting the sentient beings. So through those different practices, that is when it's like you are starting. Now you are on the path towards that enlightenment. So that is more general, And then again, as when you have the expiring bodhisattva mind, and on top of that expiring bodhisattva mind, then you take the expiring bodhisattva mind, then you see, just having that wish is not enough. Even though it's a wonderful wish, even though it's wonderful aspirations, that itself is not enough to lead there. And so you feel you need to practice the bodhisattva path in order to reach, in order to achieve the supreme enlightenment that you aspire for, that you wish for. And so when you have that strong wish to really engage into the practice itself that lead to that supreme enlightenment, then you generate the engaging bodhisattva vows. And once you generate that engaging bodhisattva vows, and then from that on, when you engage in whatever practice, then that becomes engaging bodhisattva. Then after that, after you have taken that engaging bodhisattva vows, and then on the basis of that, then you engage in the practice of generosity, or moral discipline, patience, joyous effort and virtues, meditative concentrations, wisdom, and so forth, or making offering to holy objects, making charities to those who are in the needs, giving your time, emotional support, whatever different things that you do, help, benefit, volunteering, in whatever capacity you can, in whatever. So all of that, engage in that, out of that bodhisattva mind, motivations, and that is supported by the engaging bodhisattva vows, and then that is the engaged bodhisattva. So that is where. So without the actual vows of engaged bodhisattva, Without the actual vows of engaged bodhisattva, and you cannot have actual engaged bodhisattva. And your perfect aspiration will not develop further, So just by the wishing, aspiring bodhisattva mind, even though it is such a perfect inspiration, there is nothing more better aspirations or wish, even though it's such but that aspirational bodhisattva or wishing bodhisattva will not further develop, It's a wish, but it will not further develop, and one will not be able to achieve fully enlightenment, which one is aspired for. One will not be able to, therefore, with a wish to develop perfect enlightenment, make effort to take the vows in full. And so, since the inspiration is to achieve supreme enlightenment, and the reason to achieve that supreme enlightenment is so that you can be greatest benefit to each and every sentient being, including yourself. Including yourself. And so without that engaging both the vows, so one will not be able to develop that and achieve that perfect enlightenment. So therefore make effort to take the vows in full. So therefore here is saying, make all the effort to take the engaging both bodhisattva's vows, and then trying to keep them as much as possible, So we try to take the vows without being scared, fearful, without being discouraged, without being lazy, so make the effort to take it. And again, as I mentioned before, so with engaging both of those vows, then, there is 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows. Mainly is the 18 root vows, And all those secondary vows are related with the practice of six perfections. Some of them are related with practice of generosity. Some of them related with the practice of moral discipline. Some of them related with the practice of patience. Some of them related with the practice of joyous effort in virtue. Some of them related with meditative concentration. Some of them related in relation with the practice of wisdom. So basically, those vows are related with those modes of practice, And so when we keep those vows, it helps to increase and develop those practices. So just take an example for us, okay? Someone who is taking a vows not to take a life, Are we perfect? No, sometimes maybe there are situations where we might not be able to keep it fully, especially, But because we have taken those vows, we are very mindful, and we try to solve the problem by finding other ways without having to take the life, if there is a way. We try all different means. If there's no other means, last solution, then sometimes people can break their vows. They do break vows like that. But if you have not taken the vows, probably you wouldn't even make those efforts. Do you get it? Try to find other solutions. And that is huge difference, because even you are not perfect. Sometimes you have no other options, and then it end up because sometimes people might have to use whatever to clean up their house because of some problems, illness, all of that. But if there is other options, you can solve that problem without having that. Because of your vows, you will try all your best. And I have other practitioners who have gone through a lot of things when they have certain issues in their gardens or many other things to solve that from many. And if there's you after trying so many different things, you cannot find solution, then in some cases, that. But that is what I'm trying to give that with that example is the difference it makes how much effort we put. And through that, we progress. And that's the same with all this. That is the purpose of the vows or the precept is that. As I mentioned at the very beginning, if you're perfect, you don't have to take it. Absolutely. Why you take it? The Buddha does not have those vows. He doesn't need to take the vows because he's perfect. He wouldn't engage in any of those actions. So if you don't engage in any of those actions, there's no need of the vows. So the vows are as protections for us, is a support for us to be better in our path, to become a better person, so that our actions become less harmful, so our actions become more helpful but less harmful, to reduce the harm, and those vows are something that help us to stop harming others more, It will not be able to stop us from harming at all to start with, but it will start to help us, before if you are harming, just to give you an example, I don't know if it's the best example, before maybe I'm very cursing every day, 10 times a day, 100 times a week. And because of vows, I started to be more mindful, careful. Because of my what I call habit, maybe I might still curse sometimes. Sometimes I'm not mindful. I might curse sometimes. Sometimes I lose my mind in a moment. I might curse it. So, but because of if I take a vow not to curse, and so I become more mindful, more conscious. And even I'm not successful fully, but I will be able to reduce cursing from 100 in a week to 80 in a week over the time. And that is a progress. That is a progress. And the reason why I progress is that vows help me to do that, to be more aware, more mindful, to put more effort. Am I 100% success? No. I'm still cursing 80 times. And with slowly, with that kind of more mindful, more conscious, more effort, we started to change our behavior a little bit. And then from 80, then I curse only 50 times in a week. And then 20 times and 10 times, and slowly, after time, I would stop cursing. So we have to understand in that way, That is how the functionings of the vows and the precept does, I think that is important for us to understand that. I think otherwise, we are always kind of scared of making any commitments, And if you don't make commitment, that means I'm not going to try hard, When we make commitment, we don't make a commitment to break it. Okay, we make commitment to not to break it, but the reality, the fact is being unenlightened beings, sometimes we are unable to keep those commitments. Whether it's spiritual commitment or whether it's an ordinary worldly commitment that we make, isn't it? Sometimes we make commitment for our friends, we make commitment for our parents, we make commitment for our children, but are we able to keep all the commitments? Sometimes even trying our best, we are unable to keep it because, things changes, situations arises, that you have thought to do, you are unable to do in that moment. You are unable to give in that moment, or that you had a wish to give something, you are unable to give because situation changed and all of that. So you are unable to keep the commitments despite trying all your best. But that doesn't mean, you make a commitment to break it. When you make a commitment, you really wanted to do that, but the reality and the fact is sometimes we are unable to keep it, and that's the same with our spiritual practice as well, But definitely those commitments, the vows, the precept does help a lot, Even in my cases, if I don't have those, the vows, commitment, not to drink, and not to kill, not to engage in sex and that. Probably, if I don't have those vows, I might just try it, see how it is, and then I can get caught up in that, and then I could have problem with all of that, So those vows, precepts, kind of protect you, So it's a protections, even when we are not perfect, but it still protects in some way, certain. So anyway, so I think that is all for today. And yeah, any questions, comments?
If anyone has a question, please raise your hand or unmute yourself.
I think I might have seen chats before something. Okay. Okay. I think there is one question. I think there. Gisela, is the Bodhicitta mind same as the awakened mind? Yes. I think Bodhicitta mind is Sanskrit term, and awakened mind is one of the English translations. Bodhi is the awakening and Chitta is the mind. So it's awakened mind. And in the translation that we were using, it was taught, it was like enlightened mind. So that is one of the problem with the English translation, is because so some translators use awakened mind, some of them use enlightened mind, some of them use bodhicitta mind. So, but they all kind of mean same here. Yeah. And then I think there is, you said the heart of everything is the bodhicitta mind. Is the heart of everything also wisdom realizing emptiness? Yes, from different point of view, from different perspective. From in general, I think for the Mahayana practice, for the Bodhisattva's practice, Bodhicitta path, the Bodhicitta is the heart of everything. And the wisdom is heart of, in general, for the Buddhists, all different traditions. Bodhisattva, non-Bodhisattva, Arhat, all of them, for that. The wisdom is kind of hard in that for everyone, but when it comes to the Bodhisattva's practice, the emphasis is even more on the bodhicitta mind, because that is the what make the bodhisattva unique from the arhat, not because of the wisdom, but because of the bodhicitta mind, and so that become the heart of for the bodhisattvas. So I think that is all. So we can do the dedications. Yeah. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil for ill. May no one be afraid to be little, with the mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn and torn be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those who with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rain, bountiful harvest, and may all medicine be effective, and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened sick be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentence remains, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining the class. Thank you. Have a good day.